Sejun Park was a cheater, and his Pachirisu was overrated. This is real Pokemon history with Verlisify. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to leave a like, share it with your friends, and comment your thoughts down below. Now, where do we begin? Well, let's go to the Pokemon Championship history video posted by the official Pokemon YouTube channel, because the narrative is that Sejun Park has always been an innovator. It wasn't just his Pachirisu, he had Lightning Rod Marowak, he had Follow Me Magmar, but that Magmar is actually a hack. Now, it's been pointed out by Kurt in the past when I called out Wolf for having his hacked Galarian Moltres. Kurt came in with the 25th anniversary saying, yeah, everyone had hacked teams except for the Japanese players. Wolf's Moltres was hacked. Also, they mentioned Sejun Park and his 2013 Pokemon World Championship Magmar, but that was an impossible hack. And then there's this post on Reddit going into that. So the winner of the 2014 VGC Worlds has used hacked Pokemon, including some with illegal stats in other competitions, including the 2013 World Championships. Now, this point is very important because it means the Magmar had stats it could never obtain, because a Follow Me transfer from XD or Coliseum has a nature and gender lock. So this spread will never occur for Magmar. It was a mega hacked Pokemon, but you can also see that there were problems with all of Sejun's Pokemon that he used at the 2013 World Championships. So this was uploaded into Pokecheck, and you can see these are just other people's genned Pokemon. See the PID and IVs? Exactly the same as other users, different OT language, not possible in Generation 5. And we can even see the legality flags Pokemon is edited or RNG abused, and RNG abuse was against the rules at the time. It's not considered natural gameplay, which was a part of the rules, and you have to use a third-party unauthorized app that can only exist through hacking the game and reverse engineering it, which blatantly violates the Pokemon TOS. So RNG was not legal, and this was also confirmed by judges at VGC events as well as Pokemon Company support. But Sejun's Pokemon were just straight up hacked, not even RNG'd, including the Marowak that you used to build this player's legacy. So let's see what's going on with the Marowak. Shiny and flawless black and white 2 breed. Not even possible with RNG due to the static seed bug, only in black and white 2, but also not RNG'd on black and white, as the egg met location is not link trade, and that's his other Pokemon as well. Also in Generation 5, the breeding mechanics were horrible. It was not possible for a legitimate player to breed a full team of perfect competitive Pokemon. Ability inheritance was random and specific for hidden abilities. Everstone was only a 50% chance to get the correct nature, and this was pre-X and Y Destiny Knot, so you were only passing down 3 IVs from either parent. And breeding with a 6 IV Ditto to begin with has always been illegal, so yeah, you weren't even breeding 5 IV competitive Pokemon back then. If you were using a full team of 5 IV Pokemon under any circumstance, you had an objective stat advantage over legitimate players. So what Sejun's team shows is that every top player was using hacked Pokemon and no one was wasting their time on RNG. So when we go to the World Championship Finals for 2012, where we have Ray Rizzo versus Wolf Glick, and they all have perfect legendary Pokemon, hidden power, shiny, and even non-legendary Pokemon, they were all hacked in. Wolf can't even get a legal Incineroar, Galarian Moltres, or Groudon in Generation 8 when competitive Pokemon is easier than ever before. Of course he isn't spending the over 100 hours to RNG and train this team for Worlds. Getting competitive Pokemon is easier than ever, but we saw record disqualifications at the 2023 World Championships. We had all the VGC players just consoling each other over using hacked Pokemon and then treating it like a joke. So of course none of the competitive Pokemon at Worlds back then, even the non-shiny, non-legendary ones, were legal. And yeah, just looking at Sejun's team again, complete joke. Shiny, shiny, shiny. Everyone knew the teams of full shiny competitive Pokemon were hacked by then, and it was a complete joke, and the Pokemon Company was showing to be corrupt back then because they didn't care about enforcing the rules. Because if they actually enforced the rules, there wouldn't be a single player remaining at the Pokemon World Championships, and this is where things get crazy. 9 years ago, Kafadix commenting on Pokemon legality. I totally missed the fact that the Magmar also has a female OT, which is impossible for XD Coliseum. It's sad how 4 of the 5 world championships have been won by players who didn't respect the illegally manipulated Pokemon clause. It was in the rules back then. Even more so that TPCI doesn't do anything about it. Wonder if it'll be removed for 2015's rules. And that kind of happened because the rules kept on changing as more and more players kept on getting caught with hacked Pokemon. It used to say you will be disqualified for having any manipulated Pokemon even if they had possible stats, but now it's changed to, oh, you might be disqualified, look at the Pokemon legality clause, you're allowed to have 2 but they get removed from your team, and even then VGC players are crying about it when they get caught at Worlds 2023. Sejun Park also did more cheating earlier on that year because he had a Wi-Fi tournament team of Shiny Perfect Legendary Pokemon, Shiny Perfect Legendary Pokemon, an Arceus, more Perfect Pokemon, just all hacks. We had illegal ID, SID entries, certain combos not obtainable in the game because of date time seeding. Also, we can just see that everything was a Pokegen upload. Nothing wrong at the surface, but when the same uploader has 2 uploads to Pokecheck with the same Pokemon, you can tell PID was left blank in Pokegen. Trainer couldn't decide exactly what set he wanted to use, so after 3 mild uploads, it was decided that Naive would be the best nature for a Deoxys. From Gen 3, you can see how the ID, SID changed, but not the trainer name for each tweaked upload. So just uploading Pokemon to Pokecheck. And of course, even over 9 years ago, we had people lying about Pokemon legality. There is no such thing as a legal hack. You can't legally cheat something. And that's where we keep saying this. You know, there seems to be way too many people who seem to be missing the difference between legal and legitimate. There is no difference. This is a lie. Legal, on the other hand, simply means the Pokemon specs abide by the rules by what a Pokemon can potentially be. The possible stats and nature stuff doesn't matter because it goes against the rules of no illegally manipulated Pokemon. A Pokemon that has been genned or hacked or modified in any way, even if completely possible to obtain in the game, is still 100% illegal, and there is zero argument for it being legal. This is just cheaters changing the definition of Pokemon legality to try to get away with cheating, much like how we're seeing Pokemon challenges change the definition of a Nuzlocke so he can get away with cheating rare candies and still call it a challenge, even though hacking in rare candies removes all of the challenge. Also, if we go off of what a Nuzlocke is, doing anything to reduce or remove the grind no longer makes it a valid Nuzlocke, but bad actors like Pokemon Challenges are trying to gaslight the community away from that so they can have an easier time making their fraudulent clickbait content. That's why I'm speaking out against Pokemon Challenges, because I watched it happen to the Pokemon VGC community, where it's all built on lies. But even though Sejun got caught with hacked Pokemon, even though he had Pokemon with stats that were completely impossible for a legitimate player to obtain, gotta run cover. Did these advantages win him the Korean VGC Championship that many years in a row? Hell no. Kid's a freaking genius. No, the world champ difference has always been cheating to have an advantage over your opponent, and this especially applies to WolfClick with his 2012 team and his 2016 Raichus, of which he had at least three different hacked Raichus. So Pokemon VGC was all cheating back then, and it's still all cheating now. There's just no legitimate history to be found anywhere inside of Pokemon. But what about Sejun's Pachirisu? He brought the mouse that no one expected. It twirled its little finger. It ate a Draco Meteor. Surely this proves Sejun is the GOAT and the cheating doesn't matter. Actually, no. Pachirisu is a surprisingly bulky Pokemon, and my channel, back in 2013 into 2014 for Pokemon X and Y, was already on to this. So it's not like he discovered anything about Pokemon. The philosophy of the channel is every Pokemon is viable, bulk is superior, and setup tanks will win you the game, especially against bad Smogon players that will just give you free turns with over predictions, entry hazards, and bad switches. And I did mostly VGC content back then, so the same philosophy still applied, which also makes it more interesting looking back on it, because Cybertron made a video defaming me even way back then, saying that I'm not like a real competitive Pokemon player and I don't represent VGC, even though he's also one of the OG cheaters with WolfClick and Ray Rizzo using hacked shiny legendary Pokemon. And now he's trying to prop up all of these fake narratives as an employee of the Pokemon Company while running cover for all of his friends that have been caught cheating. and then completely ignoring all of the disqualifications at Worlds 2023. It really comes full circle, and Verlisify still always right. It's kind of crazy. So going back to the Pachirisu build, 60, 70, 90. Doesn't look that crazy, but the 90 kind of fat. So if you go max hit points, it's actually surviving a lot. And if you max out the defense, it just becomes a bulky Pokemon. Now, it's not as innately tanky as a Clefable, but Clefable shows that even with a 73 defense and less than 100 hit points, you go full invest in defense and you're tanking a lot, and then you become an absolute menace, especially with Unaware, which is why Clefable has been one of the biggest competitive threats ever. Pachirisu just kind of diet on that, and when you go max hit points, max defense, you're a 3-hit KO Pokemon with Citrus Berry, which is above average tanking, and you have to get into something very dedicated like a Blissey or Ferrothorn to start getting into 4-hit KO territory. So the Ellie Squirrel Pokemon is surprisingly bulky, and if you're not offering anything offensively, then yeah, you just go full bulk. Also, I realized I made a mistake earlier because I called it a mouse. That was just because it's a Pika clone, but it is an electric squirrel. Semantics aside, my initial thought was like, oh, you just run this on the Pachirisu, max hit points, max defense, special defense nature, it balances out. But there's actually a team report for Sejun Park's Pachirisu because it is such an iconic Pokemon and an iconic team. He said that because there was so much physical threat in the meta, he just ran it with a defensive nature, and also because it has Nuzzle and no special attacks. Even though you think like, oh, electric special attacking, nah, you just go Impish minus special attack, and then you run this, and again, you're a 3-hit KO against everything, and now you just have like a lot of nasty support. What about the damage calculation? So, Salamence used Draco Meteor. That's a stab, powerful dragon-type move from a pseudo-legendary. Nothing surviving that, except for an uninvested Pachirisu. 60-90, without any tankiness, is surviving a timid or naive max special attack Draco Meteor. But the thing is, Salamence is mostly running mix with like Draco Meteor as a big damaging out. But if you just go 252 hit points, yeah, that's the damage calc we saw, about 50%. And then half of that gets shrugged off by a Citrus Berry, and Pachirisu is ready to take another hit. So even that play isn't iconic. That's just like the most standard damage calculation that I guess only Timmies and hackers that don't understand Pokemon would be surprised by. And then when you look at what Pachirisu offers, Paralysis, and this is Gen 6 Paralysis, so 75% speed reduction. Follow Me, which is also just very common in VGC. Same thing with Amoonguss Rage Powder. And then Super Fang, so you don't even need offenses. You just cut your opponent's stats in half, and then any hit is going to get the pickup KO. You also have Protect for the Jabate, Volt Absorb for Rotom and Zapdos. It's just a good Pokemon. And if you're not just net decking meta Pokemon, which again is the entire philosophy of this channel, it's not a hard Pokemon to discover. Now, I will give Sejun credit because it is risky to run a very heavy anti-meta team like he did. That if you get some weird matchups early on, or if you get outplayed by a meta team, you could just get too many losses and then not top cut, even though you were easily capable of winning the finals. But now if we just kind of take a modern understanding of Pokemon and look at the team breakdowns, yeah, his team was built really well against pretty much what everyone was running. But there's also a couple of other caveats. That 2014 was Kalos Dex only. There was no National Dex. You didn't have access to all of the legendary Pokemon, so it was a reduced power format, which gave more chance for Pachirisu to succeed, which is also why we don't see these wild, very underused Pokemon picks succeed at Worlds once the formats start opening up. And if anything, his Gothitelle was the bigger discovery because Tickle is a nasty move, especially when you're looking at everyone having Talonflame, Garchomp, Mega Kangaskhan, Mega Lucario, Mega Mawile. You don't want to be losing attack and defense, especially going up against a Mega Gyarados. Like, Mega Gyarados is just super bulky. So it gets a little bit of support either through Paralysis, its own Intimidate. You have a Pokemon that's kind of specially bulky like Pachirisu using Follow Me. The team just looks like it was built to win. Yeah, Gothitelle lowers your defense and then Garchomp tags you. That's going to hurt. Gothitelle, also just a really fat Pokemon. It had the Thunder Wave. So if we go back to the team report, hit points, defense, special defense, a little bit of creep and some damage and stuff. He was onto the optimization of going 4-4, but that's also not really that crazy. But yeah, when you just look at this, Thunder Wave. This is unnerfed Thunder Wave as well, so it had perfect accuracy. Again, huge speed cut. Nothing wanted to really deal with that, and it's not like, oh man, they have a Garchomp or they have a Pokemon that's electric, so I can't hit them. You just tickle or protect, and you get turns, and then you heal up with leftovers, and Gothitelle is just a very annoying and bulky Pokemon to begin with, but also, like, wait, 70-95? 60-70? I mean, or 60-90 even. Like, Pachirisu is as specially bulky as Gothitelle is physically. And these are just the overlooked things. And the Gardevoir was also really clutch because you have a Choice Scarf Pokemon that's coming in and just abusing Pokemon that are already weakened by the rest of the team with enough chip or finishing damage. So it was a good anti-meta team, but it wasn't something that only Sejun Park could come up with, especially because I was already applying a lot of this in 2013 into 2014. I just had no chance to compete because, again, everyone is a proven cheater. So that's the real Pokemon Championship history. It's always been more fraudulent and cheat-filled than you imagine, and not even Sejun Park with his little Pachirisu changes any of that. He isn't like, oh, the one clean player that did it with the unusual pick to show everyone. He's a cheater just like everyone else that found a strategy no one expected because everyone else was a lazier cheater. And it's not even like he was ahead of his time, that you need modern Pokemon understanding to really get his team. No, this was stuff that was already being developed back then anyways. Now, I also didn't go into the full deep dive of like his entire matchups and run into the top cut and into the finals. So there could even be like a surprising amount of luck with the players that he went up against, you know, dodging bigger threats and only getting the anti-meta teams as team worked into. Who even knows? So yeah, there's nothing interesting or valid about the history of competitive Pokemon. All the stories are fake and all the players are cheaters. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.